Live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, it's time for the Exit Exchange, brought to you by XPX Atlanta, dedicated to changing the trajectory of exit planning services in the Southeast. Now, here's your host.
And hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Exit Exchange. I'm John Ray, alongside David Shavzin and Bob Tanksley. David, Bob, great to see you again.
Hey, thanks. John. Thanks for having us.
Hey, thanks, John. Appreciate it. Looking forward to our 6th episode of the Exit Exchange.
Absolutely. We're old veterans at this point, right? So we've had a good run at it, and we've got another great guest for you today, folks. But before we get into that, I just want to remind you that the Exit Exchange is brought to you by XPX Atlanta, the Atlanta chapter of the Exit Planning Exchange. And XPX Atlanta is fundamentally changing the trajectory of exit planning services in the Southeast. XPX Atlanta delivers a collaborative-based networking exchange, a broad representation of exit planning competencies, and a bridge spanning value building, value transfer, and life legacy for business owners. If you want more information, go to xpxatlanta.org. And now I want to welcome Michael Bull. Michael is with Bull Realty. Michael, welcome.
Hi, John. Thank you. Appreciate you guys having me on the show today.
It's great to have you. So let's talk about you and your practice and how you're serving folks out there.
Oh, we're great. Well, I appreciate it. Well, I'm a commercial real estate broker, and I'm headquartered in Atlanta, licensed in 9 states around the country. And I have a team of about 50 people that I work with and support me here. And we help companies find space for their businesses. We help businesses and companies buy and sell real estate. We do things like sell lease backs and site selection and tenant representation and sell income investment properties. I also lead a team myself that sells large office buildings around the country. And then some people know me because I have a little show. I have America's Commercial Real Estate Show that we've been doing for about 10 and a half years. So that's how some people know me as well.
Michael, you're into a lot of different market sectors there through Bull Realty. I know you guys well. You're serving office, multifamily, hospitality, industrial, senior, self-storage. I mean, medical is it's all over the place. This is kind of a broad-based question, but what are you seeing out there in terms of current market conditions? Confine that to different sectors if you want, or just keep it broad either way, but what's going on?
Yeah, well, Bob, it's an interesting time. Probably some of the most interesting I've seen in my 35-year career. So obviously it depends on the size of the property and location, if it's leased or vacant in the sector. But when you look at the various sectors, industrial is just kicking behind. I mean, industrial properties are sought after. Income properties are just incredibly low cap rates. Multifamily is the same. That sector is just on fire. Investors are really driving a lot of capital toward the multifamily market. Another market that's doing extremely well is the single tenant net lease market, which is good news, I think, for a lot of this audience. The long-term lease single tenant properties with credit tenants, there's a lot of investors that are buying those properties. For example, we just put a drugstore on the market for $5 million at a 5 cap, and we have a line out the door to buy it. All cash, buyers pay closing costs. It's just an incredible market for these single tenant net lease properties. And then you get into the property types that are having a little more of a struggle. Office market, there it really depends. As you know, a lot of people are kind of questioning whether they need office. A lot of people working from home. But so there's a lot of suburban, small office buildings, medical office buildings, government leased office buildings. Those markets are really hot. We saw a lot of medical and office and government leased office around the country. Compressed cap rates, a lot of demand. But then the large office buildings with elevators and CBDs, those are not as much demand right now. They're selling around the country, but selling for slightly less. I think there might be a lot of opportunity for investors in the office market as the So that kind of comes back in vogue, right? To be in your office and be around people. And then retail, it really depends. The single tenant retail properties most of those are doing really well. Of course, some of the malls are struggling. But a lot of the grocery anchored shopping centers and a lot of the strip centers in the suburban markets are really doing well. So it's kind of hit or miss for retail.
Wow. A lot of activity. It sounds like great opportunities on both sides. Our audience here at on the radio show is primarily made up of advisors to business owners, occupations like bankers, valuation firms, M&A people, CPAs, attorneys, business consultants, and wealth managers. And a lot of their clients are business owners who also own the real estate that the business is operating out of. So for that kind of situation, what are some ways that their business owner clients can think about their real estate holdings?
Well, one thing they might consider is, especially if they're considering down the road potentially selling their business, or they're not, as I mentioned, the single tenant net lease market with long-term leases, investors are really clamoring after those properties. Interest rates are really low. So if you have a building that and you have a stable company and you create a 10-year plus lease, and you have strong credit, you can get a really big number for that property, and then have a long-term leasehold. So you still own it. You still control it, I would say. And you have a lease, so you have the advantages of that lease. And you can really get some strong returns. To give you a quick example, I was just on the phone with a client this morning. He's trying to decide whether to lease a building or potentially buy it. And thought he might be paying a little much if he bought it. But when we did the numbers and we said, well, if we create a 10-year lease, you buy it. We create a 10-year lease for it. And then we sell it at a 8 cap rate. You're going to have $200,000 profit day one. So it's possible this guy could buy this contract to buy the building, create the 10-year lease. We sell it to an investor, and this investor shows up at the closing, and instead of our tenant, our business owner, just leasing space, he's going to put $200,000 in his pocket and have a lease. So he's asking me, Michael, should I lease or buy this building? Well, you could have your cake and eat it too. We could have the flexibility of a lease and put $200,000 in your pocket. He's like, Michael, I love you. Let's do this. So there's a good opportunity now to think about sell leasebacks and if it's right for you and the benefits for your company. And because interest rates are low and demand is so high, and there's a lot of 1031 money in the market right now, 1031 exchanges where investors can sell an income property, exchange into another one and defer the gain. And the Biden tax plan is talking about planning to limit that to $500,000. If he does that, it's going to take out most of the 1031s for commercial real estate, which means there'll be less cash in the market. So a lot of investors right now are doing a lot of transactions. There's a lot of money in the market. So it's kind of an interesting year here at 2021 to consider a sell leaseback while there's so much liquidity in the market. Interest rates are low because if the Biden tax plan does go through, we have increased capital gains. We have increased tax rates. We have the 1031 limit of 500,000. Real estate values are going to take a little bit of a hit. There's going to be a lot less capital in the market. So it's kind of a nice window to kind of look at that and see if it's right for your business to do that.
Michael, so you got into a lot of interesting things and talking through it quickly, right? And our audience probably are not all real estate experts, and so they can certainly follow up with you on particular topics. For the moment, come back to, for that owner, it may be just that single tenant, they own the building, they have the business, it's been there forever. What considerations, just at a basic level, should the owner be thinking about leading up to a sale of the building? Whether it's 5 years or 3 years, whatever the timeline is. But is it like the house? Do the kitchen, do the bathrooms, and paint? What are some top line considerations for those who might be close?
Yeah, first of all, I want to think about: are you selling a vacant, user deal property? Are you selling an income property? Right. So if you're doing a sell leaseback, then you would consider, how long a lease are you comfortable with? how strong a guarantee can you provide, because that's going to create more value for the sale price. And then if you're trying to sell a vacant building, let's say your business is moving out, then one of the big mistakes you want to avoid is only having it for sale, because most businesses want to lease. And so if you've got a user building, whether it's industrial, office, retail, and you say, well, I only want to sell it, I don't want to be in the landlord business. Well, guess what? You're going to lose probably 80-90% of your prospects, because they want a lease because of all the benefits and flexibility of a business having a lease. So a lot of times we have to we had a really big client who just wanted to sell a huge building, a big international client, and their brokers were just trying to sell it. And I'm like, all right, well, that's the problem here. Let us also try to lease it. Once we lease it, there's a lot of buyers, right? And most users want to lease. So if we go ahead and put it for lease, and then if let's say that your client, business owner, doesn't want to be a landlord, right? I don't want to be a landlord, I just want to sell it. Okay, well, then we'll take it to the market for lease. We'll tell the tenants and tenant reps, so they have one, that, hey, this lease is contingent on us popping an investor in here, which we'll coordinate with the investor. So the business owner doesn't have to be a landlord. We'll just create a lease and a sale. And another tip I would give you is just think about supply and demand. If you're selling a real estate like you're selling anything else, just like you guys when you're selling the businesses, if you create more demand and get some competition going, you get more value out of things. So think about that when you're taking something to market. Use a broker that focuses on that specialty, that has great relationships and databases, and uses the right marketing systems, and actually look at what the broker does. If you're hiring a broker to sell it, how do they actually go about it and hold them to it?
Quick follow-up question, just narrowing down, and in very current times today with that industrial market, is that a little bit easier these days to sell, or is it still same ballgame? It seems like there's a lot of demand there for purchase.
Yeah.
Lease aside. Okay.
Absolutely. So if it's leased, it's an extremely good time. So if it's sell lease back. If it's a user property, it's still a good time. And then it'll depend on the specific property, right? The ceiling height, the location, the viability of the building, how many tenants can use it, how much demand is it for that location.
Hey, Michael, can we circle back to 1031? Can our audience get kind of a brief primer on how that works? It sounds like it's potentially in jeopardy, at least in terms of its effectiveness and the deal sizes that can be run using a 1031 strategy. Right. But for those that aren't familiar with it, what does that look like for property owners or investor?
Yeah. So in brevity, it's been around for 100 years. So hopefully Biden's group doesn't get rid of it. It creates revenue and jobs, and it's really great for the economy. And what it allows you to do is sell a property and do a like-kind exchange into another property and defer the taxes on the gain. So like-kind means property held for your business. If you buy another property held for your business, or property held for investment, and you buy another property held for investment, and you can do a simultaneous exchange where you do that at one table, one time. Anybody goes to a table anymore. Or you can do a delayed exchange where you close the relinquished property sale, and then you have 45 days from that time period to identify property or properties. And then you have 180 days from the sale of that relinquished property to actually close on the replacement property. And it's been the 1031 exchange. It's been an incredible boom for the economy. So hopefully it keeps going. And I think because of the possibility of it being restricted to $500,000 is why there's a lot of liquidity in the market right now. We've really never seen business so robust in the income market.
Folks, we're here chatting with Michael Bull. Michael is the CEO of Bull Realty, and he's really all things commercial real estate. So Michael, put on your prognostication hat, if you would. since we're recording this and we can hold you to it next year, tell us, what is the 500,000 threshold? Do you think that's what's going to come out in legislation, or how's that going to transpire, do you think?
John, that's a good question. I don't know that anybody knows if that's going to happen or not. The 1031 has been on the chopping block in past times, and the major associations out there, AHOA, the Hotel Association, the ICSC, the retail. So every association knows how terrible it would be for the economy and for jobs and for real estate values. So there's a lot of people that are trying to educate our representatives to let them know how bad a move that would be. But I think, the representatives, the government, they see the icing on the cake of the deferred income taxes on these sales. But they need to look at all the layers of the cake under it, that, the creating the jobs and it's great for farmers. It's great for small business. It's great for hotel owners. It's an incredible job creation. And it's been around for 100 years. So I don't know, but a lot of people are feeling that own commercial real estate and buy and sell it, that if there's a possibility, the government's giving out a lot of money to a lot of people, and they're looking for places to get it. And I think real estate, or the people think of real estate as these rich people, deferring gains. And so it could get hit. So I think that's why this window of doing transactions and values in 2021 is kind of so interesting to people.
But hey, Michael, Bull Realty's got based here in Atlanta, got a strong Southeast footprint. Our chapter is based here in Atlanta. A lot of our members have a Southeast footprint. So good overlap. We were excited to have you here on the show. What are you seeing on a hyper local level, North Georgia, the Atlanta metro area, movement in different directions, certain markets and sub-markets, falling into favor, heating up, falling out of favor, falling behind? What are you seeing there?
Bob, around Atlanta, almost every sub-market around Atlanta is doing well. We've certainly seen some of the kind of closer in-town areas that just crazy boom town, right? And then we're seeing some of the close-in suburbs as well that are just doing extremely well. So I think, all areas around Metro Atlanta are strong. There's a lot of national reports out that Atlanta is one of the great cities and markets to invest in. FIRE, the Association of Foreign Investors, they just came out with a report and said that Atlanta is a great place to invest. The PwC ULI report, Atlanta is a great place to invest. A lot of institutional capital that used to look at the major central business districts for many, many years, left Atlanta off the list. And now a lot of investors are looking at secondary cities, which in an international investor base, we're considered a secondary city. And a lot of people are looking at cities like Austin and Atlanta. And so I think, investing in metro Atlanta areas, it'd be hard to go wrong in most any area.
So Michael, take out your crystal ball again as we record this. All that said, it's a crazy time. We're June 2021 with all kinds of craziness going on. When does commercial real estate start to slide back down? Should we buy despite interest rates being low, et cetera? Should people buy now or wait a little bit?
Yeah, David, that's a great question. I think long term, real estate's always been a great investment. So while it may take some dips here and there and cycles, I think if you're a long-term investor, real estate's a strong investment because it has the benefits of leverage and inflation, right? So over time, that leverage benefit and that inflation benefit make real estate a great investment. If you have a strong, they just want to look at each individual property and tenant base and make sure. So I think real estate's still a great investment. And might it cycle down? Well, if all these tax changes happen, the 1031 exchange gets limited, capital gains in some cases is doubling. Real estate will take a hit, but it will come back like it always has. So I think it's a great time to invest if you're thinking long term. If you're going to buy a commercial property and try to flip it, in a year or two, probably not the best time, unless you are a user and you're creating that value by leasing it, right?
Yeah, and thinking along those lines comes, back to our audience of both our client base and our members' clients on the buy side. And a lot of these folks are the baby boomers, so it may not be the right play to buy, even if they're buying a business now, if they're getting out in 5 years or something. A little bit more of a gamble there, unless they don't want to be long-term real estate holders.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, if you're buying businesses, what are your multiples, your return, right? Typically, you're getting a much larger return, buying a business than you are buying real estate. So I think that's one of the questions my client had this morning, and that I had for him rather. I said, look, if you could invest a couple $100,000 in your business or another business, he owns multiple, what kind of return could you get? So you should think about that if you're going to invest in the real estate, and if you're going to own it and not, do a sell lease back and get right back out of it.
That's one thing. That is one thing we're big on here during these radio shows and in our monthly meetings is advisors, stay close to your business owner clients that in some cases may also own the property. And if there's a business owner / real estate owner listening as well, stay close to your advisors. It's a two-way street. Find competent advisors, A, and B, stay as close to them as you can, because they're doing what they do day in and day out, doing good work for people.
Amen, really brother. Amen, brother.
Yeah.
Not and really COVID's over. It's close. It's safe now, right? We can all get together.
That's right. Yeah. Not really a question as much as an observation, but we notice here in our chapter, the best advisors do tend to stay close. I'm sure all of your brokers in your shop are doing the same thing as well. What does the landscape look like out there in terms of who business owners can turn to for real estate transaction advice?
I think if they want to call me or email me, I can give a few minutes of advice to anyone and maybe put them in the right direction. I hate when a client does something, a future client, I'll give you an example. I had a guy call us to sell a large medical office building or company, and they had just renewed a lease 6 months before, and they allowed something to go on the lease that hurt their value on the building by $2 million. And I asked him, I said, when you were renewing this lease with a single tenant, why didn't you call us and get our opinion on what that particular clause would do to your valuation? And he said, well, I didn't have it listed with you at the time, and so I just didn't want to bother you. I'm like, you could bother me over $2 of value, So, pick up to your point, pick up the phone and call your advisor. But if it involves commercial real estate, call me. And if I'm not the right guy, we'll try to put you in the right direction, whatever type of property or situation you have and location.
Can we dig into that just a little more, Michael? Because that's an important point you just made. I mean, what's the most common mistakes maybe you see in leases that impair value that business owners and advisors need to be aware of?
And if I may, John, I'm sorry, and both sides of that, Michael, maybe talk about it. Put your business owner hat signing the lease, but also the owner of the building.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point and question, because I see clients get involved with pretty high priced attorneys when they're doing sales agreements and sales contracts. And I'm like, all right, guys, you're spending a lot of energy and time and money on this. And this contract is going to last maybe 60 days. And the buyer's going to do inspections and have due diligence, and he's going to buy it or not if the title's good, and you're spending all this money and time. But I see companies and landlords get involved in leases, and they're more flippant about it. And I'm like, guys, this lease could last 3 years, 10 years, 20 years. It could have huge impact for you as a business owner, and huge impact for you as an owner of the property. And don't be flippant about it. And there's about 100 clauses in leases that are extremely important to tenants. So I think, what we want to do as advisors is really understand their business, their goals, their challenges, their plans, look at their competition, look at their sector, and then try to help them figure out what's most important to them in the future. And a lot of times when you do that, you help them with something that they don't know until a year or 2 or 3 down the road, and they need it. And you've taken care of it for them in the lease because you realized it was important. Quick example, Laurie called me one day, does real estate residential closings. He said, Michael, quick question for you. Another residential real estate closing office opened in my center. My business went down 50% day one. My margins are 10%. He said, I'm losing money. I said, well, let me ask you a question. Look at your lease and see if you have a non-compete clause with that landlord for that business. He said, I'll check. He calls me back 15 minutes later. No, I don't have that. Then I asked him, I said, no, this is just a curiosity question. Who was your tenant rep when you did that lease? And this is what he actually said. I saved that money.
Meaning they did it themselves.
They did it themselves, right? Oh, and most big law firms hire tenant reps. Okay. So I think if you're a tenant, make sure you have a great tenant rep. If you're ever going to hire a commercial real estate broker for anything, to do anything, if you have a business and you need space, that's the time to hire one.
Great advice from Michael Bull with Bull Realty. Michael, this has been great, and we could keep going for quite a while because there's a lot we could get to, but we're going to have to let you go do some work. But in the meantime, let's get to the most important question. For those that would like to be in touch, take you up on that offer to give some advice and give some pointers, how can they do that?
Yeah, just bullrealty.com. You can find me there. And my email and phone number, my contacts there, or Michael at bullrealty.com.
Terrific. Michael Bull, Bull Realty. Thanks so much for being with us.
I enjoyed it, John. Guys, Bob, David, thank you for having me on.
Thanks again.
Enjoyed it, Michael. Thanks.
Thanks much.
Folks, just a quick reminder, you can find our show, The Exit Exchange, on all the major podcast platforms. You can find our complete archive of shows. If you're near a computer, you can go to xpxatlantaradio.com. Find our complete archive there. We would love it if you would find the show on your favorite podcast app, subscribe, and give us a 5-star review. It's not about us. It's about helping people find the show that they can take advantage of the great guests we have, like Michael, who give terrific advice for business owners and their advisors. So we would love it if you would do that for us. David, Bob, another great one.
Yeah, excellent. Show number 6. Appreciate it, John.
Yeah, looking forward to next show. We've got a whole series planned, folks. If you're a business owner or advisor to business owners, stay in touch with us, and I think we've got some great shows planned. So we'd love it, and we'd love to hear from you. So be in touch, and you can find our contact information in the show notes as well. So for David Shavzin and Bob Tanksley, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on The Exit Exchange.